Do you struggle at running? Do you feel that despite a lot of training, a lot of hard work, you can't go as fast or as far as you wish? Well, today we'll do some troubleshooting to better understand why you're still so bad at running, and more importantly, exploring some solutions so that you can unlock your full potential. Hi, Simon here. Welcome to my channel. I'm an ultra runner on my journey to racing 100 mile ultra marathon. Running can be extremely challenging. It requires a lot of hard work, a lot of training to see very little progress. And whereas at the beginning, when you start running, you improve very quickly, at some point we're all facing a wall. We all feel stuck. We're not progressing. We're not going as fast as we want. We're failing at some of our objective. We cannot reach the distance we want. We feel we're struggling too much. And it can be very difficult to understand why. The usual reaction when that happens is that we'll put in more miles, we'll go faster, we'll train harder, but it doesn't seem to work. It seems that you're just stagnant there. Is it that you've reached your full potential and you'll never be able to go faster or never be able to go further? I don't think so. I think there are things that we can explore, and that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna do some troubleshooting to understand why you still suck at running and find solution so that you can apply them in your training, improve at running, and meet your goals. And the first question is, do you actually suck at running? Why do you think that you're not progressing right now? Because that will change how we're gonna approach this. And just to say it, and it's not, the cliche of butterfly kind of, you're very special, everyone is unique, and only 1% of the world population has run a marathon, making you exceptional. Yeah, I mean, these things are a little bit cliche and a little bit questionable, and I think even dismissive of the fact that, well, most people don't want to run a marathon and most people are not living in condition that would enable them to run a marathon. So it's a luxury to be able to run. However, it's good to remember what you're comparing to, and I think we should not compare too much to other people. There are people that will have better natural ability at running than ourselves. I think what you should always compare is compare to yourself, compare to yesterday, and see the progress and where you're trending towards your objective. And you need to ask yourself, are my objective realistic? For example, for me, if I would say, well, I want to run a 2:30 marathon, that's not realistic for me. I know myself enough to know that this is above my full potential. And sometimes you'll need to rethink your objective. Are these objectives realistic? And why do you think these objectives are realistic? Very often we find these objectives going online, going on social media, and comparing to other people. But spoiler alert, there's a lot of crap online. Not everything is real. There's a lot of embellishment that will happen. And if you use that as a barometer to compare, are you successful yourself, you're bound to be disappointed because you're chasing unrealistic goals. Another thing that is important about do you actually suck at running is that it takes a lot of time to improve at running. And when we start running the first month, the first few months, maybe even the first year, we see progress very quickly. We're able to go further and further. You can notice the difference week by week. You're faster, you run further. But this is kind of the beginner's progress, which is great. It's a great feeling. You see directly a 1-to-1 ratio. You train, you become better. But at some point, it will plateau and progress will be much, much slower. So potentially when we feel like we're stagnant and we're not improving, the reality is that we are improving, but not at the pace that we would want anymore. And it's because you're already pretty good. You're already very close to what your full potential is, because that's how I see it myself, is that we all have different bodies and different kind of inherent ability, and we have where we are today, and then training will improve your fitness up to kind of your ceiling. And everyone has a different ceiling. Not everyone can win gold medal at the Olympic. You have to be hard worker, but also have the genetic predisposition for that. And even if we go at a lower level, not everyone will be able to do the same thing, and that is okay. And it's important to understand that your training will help you reach that ceiling. And now we're talking about, well, you start pretty low because you were not trained, and then you train, you see a lot of progress, and now there's just a little bit to gain, and we'll work on finding that and be realistic about the time it takes. It will take more than 6 months to be ready for that. It will take time and being patient and putting in the work, not just being highly motivated in a short period of time, but really being disciplined through time when it's hard, but also months after months and years after years. That's where you will see true progress, and that's where you'll reach your full potential. Another distinction that will be important is to understand when you say that you suck at running. Is it the problem with your speed? Is it the problem with the distance you can go? Is it that you get too tired? And understanding these things will help you adjust the training and adjust the solution that we'll talk about very soon. And the last piece I would add to that is that we're all on a scale of confidence, and you have people that are overly confident, and they think they can achieve anything and everything, and for them the struggle will be when they will meet reality, for example in a race, and they feel they're better than everyone. They feel they don't need to train or prepare. They race and then they blow up, and the race that should have been easy, the 100-mile, didn't go well at all, and then they feel something is wrong with them. And potentially it's not necessarily how they train, but it's how they perceive themselves, and it's overly confident. On the opposite side of that, you have people that are very anxious or have very low confidence and will be less likely to just dive right in and say, I'm ready for my 100-mile, let's go, let's do it. And that is also problematic because first, you don't actually test yourself. You're slowing down yourself to see if you can swim, to see if you can do it or not. It's hard to change where you are on the confidence scale, of course, but at least being aware of where you sit could help you change your behavior a little bit. If you're underconfident all the time, just go for it. Just try it. And don't see everything negative happening as a proof that you cannot do it, but rather as a challenge that you need to overcome and you can do it. And with exposure, you'll realize that actually I'm better than I think, which is a great feeling. You can do more than you realize. If you're on the overconfident side, the thing that you need to do is slow down a little bit, take training a little bit more seriously, understand that no, you're not built any different than other people, and you're not special. If other people are struggling in that race, you will likely struggle too. And that will reset your expectation a little bit. That will help you prepare a little bit better. And instead of having bad surprise on race day, then you will come in with the tools necessary to succeed. All right, so now that that's said, let's do some troubleshooting, identifying cause of why potentially you struggle with your running or you're not improving as fast as you would want, and importantly, finding solution. And I group them more or less in what is more like the obvious reason that people talk about all the time, but it's more like pop reason, like it's popular to talk about that, and there's some truth to it, but sometimes it's overblown, the importance of these things, but we'll talk about it because there's some truth to it. And then there's what I would call the real hidden reason, the thing that it's not as glamorous to talk about that, but actually that's very often the problem. And a small change in these things that you did not even realize, because we don't always talk as much about it, will make a huge difference. The first one is the one that I think that's our reaction when we feel we're not as good of a runner as we think, which is we're not trained enough. And what that will translate is, let's increase that mileage. I did not have enough mileage in my week. I need to run more, and more. I shouldn't have rest day. Every day I should run 10K, every day 10K, every day 10K. That's how I will become better. And overtraining will not make you improve. Training hard is important, but overtraining, that reaction of like more mile is better, is not always true. It's not never true. Sometimes you're undertrained, but more importantly is having the right structure, and that will include rest day, and that will include very big day, that will include some speed work. There's variety in your training. If you want to have the maximum outcome, it's not just to add more miles all the time and train harder and be hard and like never take rest, but rather being smart about the hard work that you're putting. I think the reason we have this reaction is that when you start running, it's the correct thing is like you didn't train enough, you don't have enough mileage, increase your mileage. And that has worked in the past. You went from being an absolute beginner to someone who can run pretty far and pretty well. And now you want to do even more than that. So it feels, well, that means more mileage. But Whereas that was true at the beginning, it's not as true anymore. Similarly, we tend to have one speed when we work out, which is not really fast, but not really slow. And something that you'll hear very often is you gotta slow down to run faster. And that's true. But it's not every run that should be slower. You should have a lot of your run that are slow, but some of your run that are really fast. And having this kind of clear distinction between the two will be pretty important. One that shoe company will not be happy for me to say is that very often we think, wow, we have to buy these super shoes, these like $300-400 shoes, carbon plate, they will make me go so much faster. And I'm sure it helps, but you won't shave 30 minutes of your marathon time by having better shoes. I think having a shoe that fits you well and doesn't cause blister is super important. And a shoe that doesn't cause you to have a bad running form is super important. But beyond that, it's nice, I suppose, but that's really not gonna make a big difference. I think half of the video that you see online that are super popular is about your running form. That's the stride that you should have to be a good runner. And I agree that you should look at your form, especially if you tend to have injuries in a specific place all the time. What you could do is you can set up a tripod or something and film yourself running on a treadmill. I've done that myself just to make sure that when I land my feet looking in front of me that my knee is not going sideways. But beyond that, I'm not saying it's absolutely useless to watch your form, but that's usually not what the issue is. I would suggest that you focus on the things that I'm going to talk about now in the second section rather than your form. Yeah, have a look, but don't obsess about it. Just like the shoes, it's nice to have the nice shoes, but don't obsess about it. There are items that are way bigger and way more important. And let's get to those. The reason that are not discussed as much, or sometimes they are, but people don't realize just how important it is compared to having the right pair of shoes. And one that is really important is having strength training. If you want to be a good runner, it's not just about running. Of course, your training plan will include a lot of running. Like, of course, yes, you will have to reach a certain mileage, but those strength training sessions, it's easy to skip them, but having 1 or 2 sessions of 30 minutes every week will make a huge difference on almost every aspect of your running. It will help with your form, which we talked about before. If you have muscle weakness, that's actually what's leading to really bad form. So it will help with your form. It will reduce the risk of injury. You will be a much stronger uphill and downhill runner. You will be able to go faster. You'll be able to go longer. Another one that is super important is to have a structure in your training and to include those rest days, to include weeks where you have lower mileage. Doing more and more will lead to burnout, will lead to injury, and it will lead to stagnation. At some point, it's counterproductive to do too many miles in a week and to not have rest days. Include rest days in your training. That's an important part of it. It's not glamorous. It's much more glamorous to say stay hard, carry the boat, never take rest days. But yeah, take rest days. Make sure you heal your injuries. Make sure your muscles are not too sore when you go for your next workout. Because another thing that is pretty common, I mentioned it a little bit before, is we all go at the same speed for all of our workout. And then people say, no, run slower, run slower. Yes, running slower is important. But another thing that is really important is you have to do those speed work. You have to do interval. You have to have threshold and tempo run. Like these high pace, high intensity will very much help you to have an increased VO2 max, and it will help you for long distance running, not just to be faster, but to go longer. You want to run 100 miles? Have those speed training sessions. These are important, but it's easy to skip them. And one of the reasons rest is important, one of the reasons strength training is important, is because those speed sessions, you go balls to the wall, you go really fast, you really get that heart rate super high. If you're banged up, you're not going to be able to have these really productive sessions. So make sure that you're well rested, that you're strong, and you go balls to the wall speed session. Don't overdo it. It's not 7 sessions per week. It's 1 or 2 sessions every week. That's what you need, and it will help you very quickly to be faster and to run longer. Another big one that we always talk about, that one, so that one I'm glad that people do talk about, is fueling. You gotta eat, you gotta fuel. And I know that for short distance, that's not necessarily true. If you do a 5K, if you do a 10K, if you even do a half marathon, fueling is not nearly as important. But when you get to marathon, yeah, it's starting to be important. 50K, oh yeah, it's really important. 50 miles, you won't have a good race if you're not fueling properly. But what is fueling properly? How can you prepare for that? Is it better to be vegan? Is it better to be keto? You hear so many things that I don't know. I don't know what's the best. I know what works for me. And I know what works for me because I've tried it. I tried it in my long run, back to back long run. You fuel like you would during a run. You practice with races that might not be your A race for the year. You practice these fueling strategy, and with experience, you'll know what will work best for you. And that will take time. You won't always get it right. We say it's difficult, not just because it's difficult to remember to do it, but it is difficult. And every race will be slightly different. You will struggle sometimes with food that normally you're able to have, and you'll have to be quick to realize that, wow, like I think the issue right now is the gels. I'm not tolerating them very well. I'm going to pivot to something else. And it's knowing yourself, practicing these things, and taking fueling very, very, very seriously. In a race, if you don't fuel properly, it's going to take some time before your running is impaired and now you're slower and now you really struggle. It will take maybe 10 mile, 20 mile to have the correlation, but it will be there. So if you notice that your fueling is not working well, you gotta slow down, you gotta eat, you gotta consume calories before it's too late, before you're in the red, before you're really struggling. And if you know that this is something that you struggle with, that's part of your training. Your training is not just running, it's not just strength training session, but it's also practicing fueling, knowing what you will eat on race day, having a strategy. If we talk about trail running, whereas I said that form is kind of a little bit overrated, like sure, watch it, but it's not the end of the world. What is not overrated is that you gotta practice on similar trail that you're gonna have during your race. It's gonna make a huge difference because if you're a little bit more hesitant, I mean, first of all, you're more likely to fall, you're more likely to hurt yourself, but if you're hesitant as opposed to being like a mountain goat and just going, you're also losing a lot of energy. You're going slower, you're more likely to be injured, and you're wasting energy. Like that's a great way to waste your race. And the only way that you can improve that, unfortunately, is practice, and gain confidence on these trails. You use the shoes that you will use. You know exactly how well it will adhere to the trail, to the rocks, to the dust, to the mud, and you can just send it. And as opposed to kind of fighting against the trail, fighting against the mountain, now you're just gliding. We talked a lot about how to physically prepare ourselves, both like the fitness level, but also being used to the trail and fueling and these sorts of things. I think these preparations are very important, but something that will become essential, and that's especially true when you're really close to your ceiling and your maximum, is you have to have a strong mind game. And the thing is that the way I see it myself is you have a certain kind of potential that you can reach based on your fitness, and like that's how high you can go. But your mental game will help you kind of, if you struggle today, like you're just not in the mood for it, you're gonna go lower. Whereas if you have a very strong mind game, you'll be able to push a little bit more. It doesn't mean that you can replace good preparation with a strong mind game, but they go together, and they help you unlock a little bit of your full potential. And that's where your mind game needs to be able to say like, hey, hold on, we're not done yet. I decide when we're done. And it's much more complicated than just saying like, well, simple, don't stop, be tough. There's a lot that you need to learn about yourself on being able to unlock your full potential, to having a strong mind game. Yes, sometimes it's about tough love and like, don't give up, you keep pushing. But sometimes it's about being understanding to yourself. Sometimes it's understanding that you are in a negative place and you need to be kinder to yourself. Sometimes it's about ignoring pain. Sometimes it's being in that pain cave. Sometimes it's about just having a strong why. Sometimes it's distraction. And if you leave it to chance on race day to have a strong mind game, well, it might happen, it might not happen. But just like you need to run to become a better runner, you need to train, you need to do these things. I think a strong mind game needs practice too. And it's tough to actually find how to do it, but certainly practice helps. Like being in uncomfortable position helps us kind of push our own limit. And sometimes it's as simple as your training. You know, you do intervals that are super fast, and you know what? You're gonna do one more. Like, you're gonna do one more right now. And like, you're distraught. No, you're gonna do one more. You can't expect on race day to be able to push through adversity if you're not used to facing adversity, if you're not used to facing these challenges. If you want to unlock your full potential, if you do an ultra marathon, at some point it won't be fun anymore. At some point it's not going to be easy anymore. If that point doesn't happen in a race, that means that maybe you didn't push as hard as you could have. But otherwise, you will face that wall. If you run 100 mile 100% every single time, it will happen. There's no question there. Even if you take it slow, you will face that wall, and you will have to look into yourself and find the strength to go on, find the will to push no matter what. And that's it, folks. These are the big reasons why you still suck at running and the things you could do to improve and unlock your full potential. But I'm curious to hear in the comments below, what do you think is a common reason for people to struggle at running, or what is a problem that you faced in the past and you made some change so that you could unlock your full potential? Let us know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching. Please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and see you next time.